Hello, welcome to my channel. I'm Cinnamon Babe, and every Friday I discuss creepy topics while I do my makeup. So if you're interested, please like and subscribe, and please enjoy the video. So Jezebel is historically known as the most evil woman in the biblical text. Jezebel was born in the early 9th century in Sidon, Lebanon. Back then, Lebanon was Phoenicia, and they later changed it to Lebanon. She was born to King Jezebel, which means Baal exists, and she had a brother named Baal Esser, which means Baal is great. It is unclear who her mother was, but I believe that the king had multiple wives and concubines, so it is undocumented who her mother was. So the name Jezebel means "where is the Lord," which is referring to the deity known as Baal, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, which was the Phoenician deity that they worshipped at that time. And he represented fertility, rain, storms, and he is also seen holding a thunderbolt as a spear. His other name is Hadad, and he also symbolizes a bull, a ram, thunder, and he also is associated with the goddess Asherah. So being the daughter of King Jezebel, Jezebel was married off to King Ahab, the king of Samaria, which is the northern kingdom of Israel, and this was done politically to unite the two kingdoms, and so Jezebel became the foreign queen of Israel. So King Ahab was originally a religious follower of the god Yahweh, which is also known as Jesus, the Lord of the Israelites. But Jezebel had sexual power and influence over her husband. She was able to pretty much manipulate him into doing whatever she wanted. And so as a result of this, King Ahab ended up building a temple and altar in the name of Baal for his wife, in favor of his wife's religious beliefs, because although she moved to Israel to be the queen, she maintained her religious belief in Baal. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So at this temple and altar in the name of Baal, Jezebel would orchestrate orgies that would go on for days, child sacrifices, and other satanic practices that they believed it would bring forth fertility to the land, fertility and prosperity. So they would sacrifice, children and animals and people unto the altar and dedicate it to Baal, believing that it would better society based off of their religious beliefs. So Jezebel brought in prophets of Baal and the goddess, and her court consisted of well over 800 people in dedication to the worship of Baalism. And due to that, Jezebel popularized the worship of Baal in Israel. And doing so, she made it illegal to worship Yahweh, the God of Israel. So any prophet or anybody who was caught worshiping Yahweh, aka Jesus God, the God of Israel, was executed, tortured. All of the altars and temples and dedication of Yahweh were destroyed, and so basically it was illegal to worship any god other than Baal. So pretty much any follower of the Christian God had to go into hiding. They would go into hiding into a cave to basically escape the persecution that Jezebel was bringing on. Together, King Jezebel and Ahab had 3 children, and I have to read off their names because it's so hard to pronounce. It was Jehoram, their daughter Athaliah, and Azia. I don't know how to pronounce it. And so later on into the story comes Elijah, the prophet. Elijah was a powerful Christian prophet who is best known for resurrecting a child. He is known for being brought up into heaven alive, like he never died or anything like that. And also is believed to, in the Christian text, that he will join Moses in the end times, basically to confront the world. Elijah becomes a direct threat to Jezebel and Ahab and to their religious beliefs in Baalism, because he directly challenges their beliefs in him, and they don't like that very much. Elijah comes and prophesies to Jezebel and Ahab, saying that there will be a tremendous drought in the lands of Israel, so much to the point that there will be no dew. It's going to be completely dry, and that's the prophecy that he makes. They basically brush him off. They're like, whatever. And next thing they know, there's a huge drought, where to the point there's no dew, there's no water, animals are dying off, people are dying. And as a result, Elijah's claims become respected by the land. So one day, Elijah invites all of the people of Israel and all 800 and something prophets and spiritual leaders of Baalism to Mount Carmel for a religious contest. And basically what this contest consisted of, basically a duel comparing gods. So your God against my God. If my God shows himself or shows his power, basically he wins and you'll be forced to see the truth. And if not, if yours shows his power, then he wins. So Elijah instructs the prophets of Baal to build an altar and sacrifice a bull, lay it on the altar, and to call upon their god Baal to send fire and thunder down, and basically light the altar on fire as proof of him being God. Thus will end the drought and basically show his powers. Mind you, Baal is the god of thunder, rain, and fertility. And mind you, there is a drought going on, and it's completely opposite of what Baal has promised his followers. So, for many, many hours, basically from morning until noon, the prophets and followers of Baal began to worship and foam at the mouth, scream and cry, beg Baal to basically, light the altar on fire. And the entire time, Elisha is making fun of them and poking fun, because he's like, where's your God? Why is nothing happening? All these hours are going by and nothing's happening. Mind you, like I said, your so-called God is in charge of fertility, and there's no fertility in the land. So Elijah's having a lot of fun while they're crying and foaming at the mouth and cutting themselves and just begging their God to show that he's God. So now it is Elisha's turn to prove the legitimacy of his God. And so what he does is he grabs 4 large jars of water. He builds the altar. He puts 12 stones around the altar. The 12 stones represent the 12 tribes of Israel. And once he builds the altar, he sacrifices the bull. He puts the bull on top. He dumps the, like I said, he dumps the 4 jars of water onto the altar. I think to like prove like that this won't be like a trick, because you know, like he's calling for his God to pour fire down on the altar, and if there's water, then basically it will help prove that it's the truth. He also digs a trench around the altar, and the water fills the trench. And he barely even has to ask. He asks God to accept the offering. And immediately after asking God to accept the offering, fire hails down from the heavens and ignites the altar, completely consuming the sacrifice, completely consuming the stone in the water in the trenches, and it basically therefore proves the legitimacy of the God of Israel. So once this takes place, the people of Israel that were invited to witness this event can clearly see who the real God is, and so they proclaim that the Lord is God and shout and cry unto him and worship. And Elisha commands for all the prophets of the pagan god Baal to be seized and taken to the river Kishon, which was currently at that time dried up, and it began to rain, and it ended the drought. Basically, God asserting his authority and showing that he is the answer to droughts. And so once all the prophets of Baal were seized, Elisha had them slain, and this news gets back to Jezebel and Ahab. And Jezebel is pissed the hell off because it's super embarrassing for her God to be publicly disproven. And also all her prophets were unalived, and so she is furious. And as a result, she threatens to execute Elisha, and when he hears this news, he flees. Elisha flees to Judah, and he basically goes to the same cave where Moses was confronted by God. So that's really historical, and I believe he's the only one who went to that cave that Moses went to, which kind of links them together because, like I said, in the end times, Moses and Elisha will come together to confront the world. So one day, King Ahab sees this beautiful vineyard. It's lush, and it's the opposite of the famine that had just recently took place. It's a beautiful, healthy, like green vineyard, and he wants it for himself. So he goes into the vineyard, and he discovers that the vineyard is owned by a very wholesome man named Naboth. And Naboth is a follower of God. And Ahab offers to buy the vineyard from Naboth. And Naboth declines and says that he was instructed by God to never depart from the land. So Ahab accepts that answer and he leaves, and he's pissed off about it, and he goes and complains to Jezebel about it. Jezebel is not used to hearing the word no. She's used to getting exactly what she wants. And so she devises a plan to take the vineyard by force, because that's what she does. And she takes her husband's diplomatic seal, like a letter seal, and she fabricates a letter that is supposed to be written by her husband and invites Naboth to a feast. And when Naboth arrives at the feast, he is accused of treason, wrongfully accused of treason, and they have him stoned to death. And this news reaches Elisha, and he is furious because it was such a unfair and unjust act against a human being. So they take the vineyard for themselves after they had Naboth unalived, and like I said, the news had reached Elisha, and Elisha comes out of hiding and directly confronts the king and asks him, have you ended Naboth's life, and have you taken what belonged to him? Of course, the king proudly said yes, and Elisha. So Elisha prophesies to the king and says, the same place where Naboth's blood was licked up by dogs will be the place your family's blood is licked up by dogs. This pisses off Ahab, and he says, you are my enemy. And Elisha just calmly responds and says, you've made yourself an enemy of God because of your actions. So, Elisha basically prophesizes that Queen Jezebel will be eaten by dogs, and that the entire family will be as well. And surprisingly, as a result of hearing this news, Ahab repents. Like, he sincerely repents to God. And so, as a result of that repentance, God turned his wrath towards Jezebel, because Jezebel stood firm in her religious belief, and she had no intentions of changing. She still was unaliving babies. She still was unaliving anybody who believed in God that wasn't Baal. So all of God's wrath turned to Jezebel. So 3 years later, Ahab dies in battle. He is then succeeded by his oldest son, but his oldest son also dies as a result of an accident. And then the next in line is Jehoram, their second son. Jehoram is then executed or assassinated by Jehu, which is the son of Jehoshaphat. Also executes the son of Jezebel's daughter, which his name is Isaiah, and Jezebel's daughter is Athaliah, which is really hard for me to pronounce. It's actually a pretty name. So then Jezebel's known reign has been ended. She no longer has power because Jehu, the son of Jehoshaphat, is now the king of Israel and has taken power from Jezebel. And so Jezebel hears that Jehu is now coming for her. And so she prepares herself. She puts on a wig with adornments, probably like gold adornments. She puts on makeup, probably similar to what I'm putting on right now. And, basically dresses up like real fancy. Probably trying to like be seductive again, because she thinks that's going to be the way out of everything. And she looks out the window to confront Jehu, to basically show her rebellion against his reign, and to just show that, like, look, I'm still standing, I'm not afraid of you. And Jehu is like, whatever, this is not cute, and he instructs for her servants to push her out of the window. She then is pushed out of the window because they could not wait to push her out the window because they were tired of her. And her blood splatter gets all over the horse, all over the walls. Jehu's horse then tramples her corpse. And then he enters into the palace and he has a feast. While he's having the feast, he orders for her body to be prepared for burial. And when they came outside to get the body, they saw that her skull, her hands, and her feet were the only parts of her corpse that was left, and the rest had been eaten by dogs. So there is the end of the tale of the most evil woman in the biblical text. By Jezebel being eaten by dogs, Elisha's prophecy is fulfilled, and it is also believed that Jezebel's reign was for about 30-something years, and she died 850 BCE. And I hope you enjoyed it. It's pretty crazy. that is the end of the 2-part series of female cult leaders, and I just thought that this would be an interesting end because it's biblical, and I find it to be very interesting. And also, I'm not gonna lie, I had a hard time finding like cult leaders that just weren't too graphic, because I was like reading into one. She was a Mexican cult leader, and her story was pretty like graphic, and I just didn't want to get too far into that, although Jezebel's end was also very graphic. So that is the end of the 2-part series of the female cult leaders, but there will be more episodes of creepy stories or horror stories by Cinnamon Babe. So I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe, and stay tuned for the next episode, the next series.